So, whew, here we are. It's Wednesday. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. Um, I was reading something last night, actually late last night because I wasn't sleeping very well, about love. And I thought I'd share a little bit of it with you. What the author was talking from Corinthians 13 and the definition of love, where it says love is not bad tempered, right? Um, and that's an interesting thing. Hey, Carol, how often do we um, so often when someone is virtuous, right? When someone says like, well, I do all these things. Hey, nice to see you, Carol. Um, we then we then equate that, right? We say, okay, well, if I'm doing the right thing or I'm being loving, hi, I love you too. Um, then, but then we get mad at the other person for not doing certain things, right? For not being virtuous in a certain way, right? And the interesting thing is that definition of love says love is not bad tempered, right? How often do we meet? Oh, thank you for the hearts. How often do we meet people who claim to be religious, right? Or they claim to be loving, or they claim to love you, but they're very bad tempered with you, right? Hey, Harshita, nice to see you. That happens a lot, doesn't it? I've noticed that happens a lot, right? People who say that they live according to the Bible, or they say that they live according to, oh, Carol says she's Brazilian. Yay. Rocking it out. I like Brazil. I've been there. I spent probably about 5 weeks in Brazil some years ago. It was a lot of fun. I spent quite a while in Florianopolis, Rio, São Paulo, and Ilha Grande. So that was good fun. Anyway, so we're talking about love, talking about what love is and what love isn't, right? And so oftentimes we find people who say I love you, but then they are bad tempered or they get self righteous or oh thank you. Lux Harshita says looking gorgeous. I appreciate it. And but this like bad tempered thing, I was looking at it, I was like, wow, okay, so that's really not love. So if we get bad tempered with our mate, right? Usually for something that they do or haven't done that we are mad about, right? Then that's not love. That's actually the opposite of it, right? Because being bad tempered or being self righteous or being angry at someone for not being virtuous or being angry at them for not being loving or for not doing what we think that they should do, um, that's actually not love on our parts, right? So that's kind of a crazy thing, right? Where it's we're supposed to be being loving or we're supposed to be doing all these things, but if we start judging the other person for not doing it, then we're being a hypocrite because we're not being loving either, right? And this is where a lot of good people, right, people who like to think of themselves as very virtuous and good, that's a lot of where this is where they fall short. And that's what it was talking about, right? Where it says it doesn't matter, like, faith and prophecy and all of these other important things, knowledge, it will all pass away. But love doesn't pass away. And what is love? That's why it's so important to understand what love is. Right? When I talk from this framework is the base. This framework is don't violate this and you're a moral person. But love is the juice. Love is what goes beyond it. Love is what makes our life worth living. If we just had to live according to this all the time and it was just constantly, I give you this, you give me that, it's an exact fair exchange, right? What would be there? Just life would not be a lot of fun, right? Love is what makes it worth living. Love is what we are look for. Love is what we want to feel and to give and to receive. So I think it's so important to study and understand what love is, right? We have so much misconception around the topic of love. So I think that's very important. Don't you? Say, give a thumbs up if you think that's important to understand. Carol's asking, do you know how to speak something in Portuguese? Eu falo pouco português. So a little bit. I actually studied Portuguese, not Brazilian Portuguese, when I was younger because I grew up in Macau. So I lived, when I was a teenager, I took some Portuguese lessons. I must say I have forgotten most of it, but I still remember a little bit. Okay, Harshita's giving us a thumbs up there. Good. So she understands why this is so important. Why? Because we look for love, right? We want love, and yet the models that we have for love are usually not love at all, right? Our models for love often coming from our parents or other people in our lives, teachers, gurus, whatever. But oftentimes they're not really modeling what love is. So it's up to us to. It doesn't mean they don't have love. They may have love, but there's a lot of other stuff mixed in there that isn't, right, and that they are calling love, or that they are putting on you and saying, I love you, so this, I love you, so you have to do that, I love you, or if you love me you would do this, right? And they have all of these conditions to it, which is not what love is about. That's the opposite of it. But in order for us to feel it, to experience it, to really learn to live it, then it makes sense to study it, doesn't it? I had a friend, a male friend, very successful, like, billionaire level, really cool guy, very fit, very healthy, all of this stuff. And well, for men, it can be sex, right? So not just love, right? But he said something really funny to me. And I was like, it makes so much sense, because he said, why do we as men do all this stuff? Why do we get fit? Why do we go to the gym? Why do we want to make all this money? Why do we do all this stuff? Because we want to have a woman, because we want sex, right? So he said it didn't make sense to him that men didn't study how to get good at sex. They studied how to get good at making money. They studied how to get good at everything else to get the sex, but then they didn't study how to be good at sex. So he was talking about how if that's really the goal, study that thing, right? And it's funny, but it makes a lot of sense in a weird way, right? So if our goal in life is to love, or to experience more love, and to be loved, right? Then it makes sense to actually study what love is. What does love mean? How is it expressed? How do we create it, right? It makes sense to actually study it, because otherwise we're going around saying we want something, and we're trying to do all this stuff that may have nothing to do with it, right? And instead of actually going after the real thing that we want, and being good at the actual thing that we want, instead of trying to do all this other stuff to get it, but not even really understanding what it is in the first place, or how to be good at it, right? So that was my friend's point about men and sex, right? That they do all of this stuff to get it, but they don't understand the actual sex. They don't actually understand how to be good at it, because they don't study it, right? And he'd actually taken courses on it. And if you can imagine a man who is very powerful, he could have any woman he wanted, basically, just from, he was very good looking, very powerful, right? But even he understood the necessity to be good at the thing you actually want, right? So that's just kind of a funny aside, but it's the same principle, right? If our goal is love, our goal is to be loved, and to be in love, and to have love, then why aren't we actually studying what love is, what love means? Instead, we study all of the stuff around it. We study techniques about how to get a man, and how to make someone fall in love with you, or how to have great sex, right? We study all these techniques around it. We try to be more beautiful. We try to go out and, make more money, or all those things that we think will help people to love us. But instead of actually studying what is love, because if we actually studied what is love, right, we might discover that we can create love without all those other things necessarily, right? That love isn't maybe about all those other things. And when we're in the relationships, to understand what love is, if we have committed to be a loving person, right? What is love? We have to know what that is. Otherwise, we're just saying it with our mouth, and we're not really practicing it at all. So that's a little bit what I want to talk about today. Something from my reading last night before I went to sleep. Hey, Jay, nice to see you. Hey, So Diana, nice to see you as well. I hope you guys are all having a great day. I'm going to let you go now. It's a short one today because we got stuff to do. This is a busy week. All right. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you tomorrow. And remember that, check it out, explore it, research what is love. Not going to know unless you research it, right? And the first thing that we talked about today is love is not bad tempered. So if you're feeling angry and a bad temper or annoyed at somebody, you already know that's not where that is. So, okay.